Imagine this, one US airstrike at Yemen and suddenly the world's economy, oil supply and even the possibility of a new Iran-Israel war are hanging by a thread. Sounds exaggerated? Unfortunately, it's not. Just yesterday, US fighter jets allegedly supported by Israel struck Houthi strongholds in Yemen. Homes were destroyed, women and children killed, and the Houthis are vowing revenge. But here's the scary part. This isn't just about Yemen anymore. This could trigger a chain reaction that pulls in Iran, Israel, and maybe even the entire West Asia region into a deadly spiral of war. So what's really happening here? Why did America strike the Houthis and how could this small country, Yemen, one of the poorest in the Arab world, become the center of a global crisis? Let's break this down step by step. In the port city of Hodeida, Yemen, an airstrike flattened entire residential areas. According to local sources, at least 8 people died, including women and children, and more than a dozen others were injured. The Houthis immediately blamed the United States, saying Washington is directly responsible. The US hasn't denied it either. Reports also suggest that Israel has been quietly backing these operations. But the big question is, why? Why would the US and Israel be interested in bombing a rebel group in Yemen, a country that most of the world barely talks about? To understand this, you need to understand the Red Sea. The Red Sea is one of the most important trade routes in the entire world. Nearly 12% of global trade passes through this narrow stretch of water called the Bab and Mandeb Strait. Oil, food, electronics, everything you can imagine flows through this choke point. Now, the Houthis have been attacking ships passing through these waters. Sometimes they launch drones, sometimes they fire missiles. They claim they're targeting ships linked to Israel and its allies as a way to show solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. But here's economic fallout. Every time a missile flies, insurance rates for cargo ships skyrocket. Shipping companies are forced to reroute thousands of kilometers around Africa. This adds weeks of delay and billions of dollars in costs. And when trade routes are hit like this, global inflation worsens. Prices of oil, food, and consumer goods rise. So if you're paying more for petrol or groceries, part of the reason could be these attacks in Yemen. Let's pause. Who exactly are the Houthis? The Houthis are a rebel group in Yemen, officially called Ansarullah. They follow the Zaydi branch of Shia Islam and are strongly supported by Iran. Over the last decade, they managed to capture large parts of Yemen, including the capital Sana'a. The US and Saudi Arabia label them as terrorists. The Houthis themselves say, "We are resistance fighters, not terrorists." They argue that the attacks on ships and missiles against Israel are in solidarity with Palestinians. Since the Gaza war erupted in October 2023, the Houthis have stepped up their attacks, even targeting Israeli cities and American warships. So what you're seeing is not just a local Yemeni conflict, it's part of a larger Iran versus Israel proxy war. Let's look at the recent timeline. October 2023, Gaza war begins, Israel attacks Hamas. November-December 2023, Houthis start attacking ships in the Red Sea. March 2025, the US launches a major air campaign against Houthi positions in Yemen. August 2025, now this deadly airstrike, allegedly with Israeli backing, killed civilians in Yemen. Each escalation brings us closer to something bigger, a direct confrontation between Iran and Israel. Why Iran? Because the Houthis don't operate in isolation. They are heavily armed and trained with Iranian support. The same Iran that backs Hezbollah in Lebanon and various Shia militias in Iraq and Syria. So when the US bombs the Houthis, it's just hitting a rebel group. It's indirectly striking at Iranian influence in the region. Iran in turn sees Israel and the US as its biggest enemies. That's why many analysts fear if this escalates further, we could see an Iran-Israel direct conflict which would be catastrophic. But while we talk about geopolitics and oil trade, let's not forget the human cost. Yemen has already been called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Years of war, famine, and disease have devastated the population. Now, with every new strike, more civilians die. Families are buried under rubble, children starve, and yet global powers treat Yemen as a chessboard in their larger geopolitical game. The US claims that it is protecting global trade. The logic is simple. If the Houthis keep attacking ships, the global economy suffers. By striking Houthi bases, America says it is securing international waters. But here's the irony. While America justifies these attacks in the name of protecting global trade, civilians in Yemen pay the ultimate price. And what about Israel? Although not officially acknowledged, reports suggest that Israeli intelligence has been working with the US to target Houthi infrastructure. Remember, the Houthis have launched missiles at Israeli cities. So for Tel Aviv, neutralizing the Houthis is a matter of national security. In short, this isn't just America's war, it's Israel's war too. So where does this all lead? Let's connect the dots. Gaza war triggers Houthi attacks. Houthi attacks trigger US airstrikes. US airstrikes provoke Iran. Iran retaliates via proxies like Hezbollah. Israel responds militarily. This cycle keeps expanding and very soon what started as a local strike in Yemen could explode into full-scale regional war. A war that not only destabilizes West Asia but also chokes global trade, raises oil prices, and creates ripple effects worldwide. So here's the big question I want to ask you. Do you think the US and Israel are justified in attacking the Houthis to protect global trade? Or do you think this is just another example of powerful countries using global trade as an excuse for war? Tell me in the comments below. I'd love to know your perspective. To sum it up, the strike on the Houthis is not just about Yemen. It's about oil, global trade, Palestine, Iran, and Israel. It's about how the poorest country in the Arab world has become a battleground for the most powerful nations. And while governments argue about security and economics, the people of Yemen continue to suffer. The real danger is that every single strike, every single retaliation is pushing us one step closer to regional war, a war that none of us can afford.